Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 29th episode of World Blockchain Roundtable. Today we have Greg from Rivet, we have Dave from Den.social, we have Oren, entrepreneur artist, and we have Sean, an entrepreneur. I'm Joe, architect Dragonchain. Quick update on last week's show. Every host is going to get 400 lot, and every topic contributor will get 125 lot. In fact, we should talk about that today. Probably that lot comes with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes, which is now live. So we can start thinking about how we can adjust the program, even all the way down to the payouts and how the balance works between the hosts and the topic contributors. So we should talk about that soon. Theme this week is Metaverse. So I guess we go to the questions. Anybody have anything to say before we hit questions?
Looking forward to this topic a lot. We've been investing a lot into the metaverse, and so we think that there's a lot of room for opportunity in the space and to virtually connect, especially with a pandemic and the COVID situation. So this is definitely a relevant topic. Right.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. First question. Dragonchain hodler. How can Facebook justify crushing individuals, families, and companies who talked about crypto or ran crypto advertisements, but can change their name to Meta, and now all of a sudden it's okay to talk about crypto and run crypto ads on Facebook? Should they at least have to explain why they would ban these people back then, but when they get in, all of a sudden it's a good thing? Disgusting.
That's a good question, huh?
No, because of hypocrisy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a business, right? I tend to think it was a business decision. Something special about just cryptocurrency, metaverse, all of this in general is it's like we all kind of front ran the big companies and they're pissed. So that's my opinion personally. But I think that they had Libra and they were like, oh, we're going to do Libra. And it's like, was taking too long and they were running into problems and got to keep everybody down until we're ready. Right. I think it's the same thing with Metaverse. They were just like, no, nobody can do this. We're building internally, and we have the power to shut everyone up while we're building internally. So we'll do that until we're ready. Okay, now go. That's my opinion.
I disagree. I disagree on this. Let me tell you why. I was caught up in that. I was banned on Facebook from promoting my store and other stuff, and they gave like the dumbest reasons. And this is like 16. And then they came out and said, okay, it's crypto. At first, it was like YouTube. They were just like, no, it goes against all our standards. What standards? These standards. And in doing this show, I've changed my mind. I used to think it was kind of like what Dave was saying, but it wasn't business because business was taking the ads and making the money. And you can look at the stuff that they put on now. It's mind blowing. But I think it was the fear of the unknown, of no regulation, of not knowing what the hell it is. I mean, early on. And then later, there was that second stage where everyone else was kind of coming around and then they were still staunchly no. That's when they were developing Libra. But I think in the beginning, when they first banned crypto, it was across the board. You know, Alphabet banned it. You know, you couldn't advertise crypto stuff anywhere. If there was a Bitcoin on it, it didn't matter.
Right.
So I think it was different. There's like two different parts of the question, because there was really two different bans. I think initially it was just out of not knowing what the hell it is, and then fear of getting caught up in like some kind of government backlash. And then later on, when people realized, well, those businesses realized, oh, it's not just for buying and selling people and drugs. Then Facebook, you know, had the ulterior motive.
Right.
Yeah,
First they ignore you.
The stepping stones, right? Of like, they get that it's not just that, and then eventually they get that it's not just about money, and then eventually they get like, everybody goes through that sort of in whatever order.
Right. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win.
And you win.
They're changing to this is their accession to the fact that this is ascendant, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. No ridicule, no fight. They have to go with it, or they have to be overrun by it.
And what feels even a little bit more comical about their entry into the market is that this stuff has been around for years, right? They've kind of used us as the test market to see if it's going to be successful, to see how we use it, and then they just appropriate what they need for their own corporate purposes, you know? And the problem with their vehicles and with their devices is the fact that people are doing this purely for innovation, purely to solve a problem. These companies have stockholders, they have pre-existing conditions that they need to attend to, and so it's always going to limit the true scope of what they want to accomplish when they're using blockchain or cryptocurrency or a metaverse, right?
Yeah.
It's funny also because it's the whole thing is, it reminds me of like I mean, I guess there's so many people that don't work now, but and people at home, but you know, like back in the day, all the soap operas, you know, during the day, and all the commercials, if you were sick from school or something, all the commercials were for like bartender school or learn how to drive a big rig, or they were all like targeted to old people, you know, and they were like the dumbest thing, like, look at this, you know, newfangled technology, and it was some like, you know, old piece of crap, and but it was, you know, it was marketed towards old people, and it seems like everything that they're doing is kind of but marketed towards people that don't know or understand, you know, what it is. They just know it's shiny and bright and cool, and it's weird that like still the masses don't know or really understand. Like now the masses have heard of it. Now the masses know it's not, like I said, just for criminals, but they still don't really understand it all. It's just funny to me that it's marketed that way.
I have a few things, and I don't know if these are questions or just comments one way or another, that for one thing, I don't know that they were so fearful because they did bring Libra in. I think that is a little more that they know who they own and or they know what weight they have, right? So they could throw around. I think Libra probably just wasn't going to work. I think talking to the people that I knew that were involved in some of that, it kind of blew my mind. It's like, why aren't you doing something useful that could actually benefit your company and your users? It's like, why does Facebook need Libra? It didn't make any sense. And that's why a little bit of tinfoil hat, thought there's a huge risk that Libra would get grandma on board, would have a significant sum of her savings somehow in Facebook. And then when it collapses, crypto becomes the absolute worst thing in the world to all the normal people. That was my biggest concern. Same thing that you could say with El Salvador. If they make one significant mistake, the entire traditional world is going to descend upon that and say, look, this is why you can't use Bitcoin. That's my biggest fear, right? With any of that stuff. It's great otherwise.
That's a good point about El Salvador too, in relation.
With Facebook, them swapping their name, rebranding. They didn't have Chad, but they rebranded to Meta. And now it makes some sense because they own Oculus, and everybody knows that model is really bizarre. That, you know, if you get banned on Facebook, this hardware that you bought is unusable.
Yeah,
that type of stuff. But you could take it as this is basically them appending .com to their name. Back in the .com era, that they, you know, okay, oh, we're gonna plant our name on Meta. We are going to be the Meta that everybody sees when they hear that metaverse word, and that's what this is. So this is, in my opinion, essentially, we want to be the first ones to be the .com in this world, right? So anyway.
I didn't even know about the Oculus thing. I bought one for my nephew for Christmas, and I was talking to my son about it, and he was really pissed. He's like, oh, you know, you have to have a Facebook account. You can't have anything to do with Oculus without a Facebook account. I don't want, you know, like my grandkids. Like, I don't want the kids to have Facebook accounts. You know, my grandson's 3. He's like, I don't want him anywhere near Facebook. So it really does show kind of the, like you were saying, the evils of it, you know, the total centralization. But then, you know, the argument once again is grandma's going to dip her toe in the water and learn something. And then the idea and the hope is that once people look down the rabbit hole, that enough people will, you know, take the red pill and then
what Joe was saying,
grandma.
people might think that is the rabbit hole, but it's not.
Yeah, it's just one part. I'd say you could consider it the same as Minecraft for little kids coming into gaming, right?
Well, that was my friends who all made fun of my, you know, funny internet money, my Monopoly money. You know, they were talking about Libra. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm going to be a Bitcoin guy. Yeah, I was like, well, well, not exactly, but you're doing good. I'm glad you're open.
It reminds me of how
go ahead.
America Online was a network that you could sign up for, or like Prodigy was a network you could sign up for. It wasn't the open internet when those things first came out. You could get on there and you could access their private network. And it ended up being a gateway for a bunch of people to the actual internet.
And you could, but sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, them planting their flag in it is, you know, either a complete act of naivete because they think they can actually win against a horde of open things that are ultimately going to be able to run circles around them in terms of what they can actually offer people, right? There's going to be some cool thing that violates some partner's notion of what's okay for them to do that their board will not let them do, and ultimately people will migrate away from it. Same thing that happened to AOL. Or they know exactly what they're saying, and this is a metaphorical gun to the heads of the people who want to limit them and censor them. You know, it's basically like, I mean, imagine if Libra was just a way for them to say, look, we could have announced Ethereum and our own ERC21 or ERC20 token. We could have announced Bitcoin. We could have announced any kind of support for any other kind of token, and it would have actually been ready day one. We wouldn't even had to tell you that we were developing it. We could have just launched it. That was a threat that they could have made to the legislature behind closed doors to say, back the fuck off.
They should have, at least, if they're going to make Libra, why not back it with Bitcoin as if you were a nation state, and then it would actually have a real backing, and it would be a totally different issue.
Well, that's a Libra. I remember I covered it really hard because there was so much. There's so many nuances and things that happen with the Libra story that are monumental. But Greg made this that super great point and analogy. You know, AOL was that opening to this weird world that scared the shit out of people. I had my cousin. She was like, I'm not going to have a computer in my house. No way, I'm not touching it. And, you know, that was that gateway. Everyone's like, hey, look at me. I'm running the Matrix. Hey, all right. You know, it would open the door and people stepped in. And I think that Libra was that way. But during the development of Libra, governments actually said, hey, when this goes live, this is going to be the most powerful country in the world. They will have, you know, their currency will have, you know, billions and billions of people backing it, and there's no way that we can control it. It's its own thing. So that's when they started bringing everyone into before Congress, and they were lining them up. They were like, "Hey, what the hell is going on here?" And everyone from Libra would go to the Hill, and they would talk, and then you could tell the sentiment was really pushing against Libra and against Facebook, and they moved their headquarters to Switzerland, right. And the whole attitude changed. Now, once they moved to Switzerland, they didn't come before the Congress anymore. Congress went to Switzerland to ask questions and to interview them. It was this complete change where they stood up to, and that was one of the biggest things, because everything in crypto was fear. You know, we don't know what the SEC is going to do. We don't know what this country is going to do. And that was one of the first times. I mean, since then there's been other with, XRP with, the lawsuits and all that. But that was like one of the first time when I think that the whole paradigm shifted, and Facebook, they left the country. They set everything up. They said that, Libra is completely separate. We're Facebook. That's Libra. We're out of it. Please leave us alone. And then Libra stopped really giving a shit and coming before Congress. That was a big deal to me.
Can I bring in one idea that might be in before we go to the next, which is something to watch for? That let's say they can't produce what they need to produce for their metaverse in Facebook, and they therefore need to go shopping for, and you think about it, the most dominant or the most powerful networks in the metaverse are going to be crypto based and hopefully DAOs or something else. That'll be something that those projects have to consider going out the door, that Facebook has a lot of capital, that if they wanted to, and if they don't protect against it, they could come in and control one of those networks pretty readily. It increased the value, obviously, but that's just something to think about. So anyway, I don't know if it'll happen.
Right. It's totally the importance of open protocols and open standards and maintaining those from the get-go. Like if you got open licenses on your code and you got open source everything and your protocol is open, then they're going to have to play in that world. That's why I think it's important that the projects in the space have that foundation.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
We should have gotten to this question earlier. I flipped my shit when I saw Facebook using the term metaverse in their company's new direction, but I can't say I truly know what's going on. Are they hijacking the term? I think we've answered that for their own centralized world of non-blockchain digital experiences. That I don't know. I've not watched his presentation or anything else, right? It'd be similar if a year ago Facebook introduced neat fun trophies for your profile and marketed them as NFTs, right? I mean, yeah, they could do that, and literally non-fungible tokens, there's not even a part of the term that requires them to be decentralized. But I mean, that's a good point.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Metaverse could
if they did that,
the Facebook metaverse could just end up being an Oculus game, just like a AAA title game. I don't know.
Yeah.
If they did that, it would still be a win, though, because it would get the word out there, and then we can spend the next year making very clear to everybody who bought into the fake version of the cake that the real cake's over here.
Right. It could be something where
argument to make.
It could be something where it's like, why are you hosting your get together, your neighborhood get together on Meta? Why aren't you doing it over on some network that you can actually own the place and or make money? And that'll be the similar thing.
And we think that education would help with a lot of this, and people understanding the ethos behind crypto, blockchain. When a lot of people talk about cryptocurrencies, we tell them to watch the film Banking on Bitcoin because it shows you what was the landscape when this was created. So people can understand some of the ideologies that should be powering the tech, right? Like if Facebook is grape juice and crypto voxels is wine, it's not the same, even if it's the same ingredients. And so we need to understand that.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And another really great example is the mindset in Ready Player One between the guy who wanted to acquire the main network and fill it up with ads versus the ethos of the original creator, which was everybody can get into this and everybody can have a fair shake. And that's that's a huge, like, if it ever starts to look like you have to pay to get the ads off of your field of view, you're drinking the wrong water.
Right. I agree. You go to the next one. We cut that for between the two. Bitcoin Johnny, why did it take so long for the metaverse to pop despite being in a pandemic for so long? You would think the elites would be all about the metaverse and cryptos early on to stop the spread.
I don't think it took that long. I think the time runs really quickly in this industry, and that like a year is such a small amount of time that I think they actually jumped on it quickly. Personally, that's just a
I think he's looking at it through the crypto mindset.
Yeah,
a whole year. Oh my god,
impatience.
It's just like you have to remember that's kind of, you experience time differently in the crypto verse in the metaverse.
And by the way, I think the bigger part of it, and why I don't even think that, I don't think this has gone crazy yet. This isn't like dinner conversation at Thanksgiving, usually, unless somebody's, really in that world or something, that it seems early. I still don't know, what is the proposed killer app of the metaverse, because frankly, we could be doing this in the metaverse and this would be the top. If I asked anyone who is in that world, getting people together in this environment would be probably the first thing they would mention. Well, you can have concerts there, or you can show galleries there. You could do that on a freaking website. You can do that, with streaming video. What is the killer app of the metaverse? That's my biggest question.
Or how long?
You should have put that in the question.
I know, but I don't ask the question, so I don't have to.
How long before World Blockchain Roundtable is hosted in the metaverse, and we're actually on a stage in front of virtual denizens, talking in this space, right?
I've even had a couple of short conversations with people about that, where like, I know a couple of people who think that metaverse is just like a really fresh way to interface with the internet, where you don't have this like 2D screen in front of you with like a static things to click on. You can actually explore, and everybody has their own slice of website, and then maybe it links you out to the actual, to the greater internet. And
someone could be rifling through my shelves back there while we're talking.
Yeah, but I wonder, like, are people going to use some of the stuff that, for example, Facebook thinks they're going to use? Are people going to hold meetings? Like, is it more useful to have a virtual board meeting in a room with a virtual table than to have a conference call where you can share your screen and things like that? Like, what are people going to use? I don't know.
Well, as an example, being a software dev forever, it's come up independently in multiple conversations with other software teams or with groups that have been building things. And this somewhat is an analogy, right? This is not direct, but the things like the interfaces, well, in many sci-fi movies, I'm trying to remember one that they would usually bring up.
Jurassic Park?
No. Like where it was like, oh, it's all fancy. I mean, I guess Iron Man would be one, but it's like, I'm going to do things up here in the, on virtual screens, right?
Lawnmower Man.
They talk about in real life, if you had to physically be doing this all day, or even this all day on a virtual screen, it's not a kind interface. It would be.
Well, the Wii was popular, and that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, but it's like it's one of those things where that type of thing, and it's I wonder, there has to be something that is and I don't know what it is precisely, that killer. I mean, gaming would probably be where I would go. It's like, oh, if you could plug it into games.
I suspect
my opinion is, I think it's going to be AR. I think AR is is what's really, really cool, because the metaverse, it's fake. Virtual reality, it's virtual, but augmented, it's that balance. You could have the boardroom, and it's like those sci-fi movies where they're all holograms. But
right.
You just look at the screen, and you're seeing your conference room, but those people are just sitting in the seats. So it is much more of an immersive reality. I think that's what people are gonna jump on.
I think it's going to be actually a combination of all the things that we can think of, and then some stuff we can't. Like, it may very well be that my favorite way to interface with the board is to have a virtual representation of the boardroom on my desk here, and I can, position myself, and then once I'm positioned, I can zoom in to myself as if I'm watching just a regular old video conference. But other people may be experiencing it in 3D. Other people may be experiencing it in AR. It can be everything to everybody in the context that you prefer, without it having to have one particular standard. I think that's a perfect context within which markets will decide what they prefer.
Oren and I were talking just briefly before the show about a couple of different metaverses. And Oren, you brought up a couple of them that might be interoperable, like transferable between each other. And I think that's my friend Jay brought that up to me, and he said he's kind of waiting for that to be, find the interoperable stuff. And that's going to be key, because I think of the early internet, whenever you had different like formats and different codecs and different things you had to have plugged in to support. Like, you go to a website and it says, for your best experience, use this browser instead, and it's clunky.
They're like Real Player versus in the early times.
And I look at the metaverse. Sean, you said it's not real or something to that effect, but
Mhm.
I look at it more like a man-made multiverse where like these are like universes. This is real shit, but I just want to be able to go seamlessly between them. I want to go visit Orin's multiverse, you know.
Yeah.
I want to go visit
And
its
you
palace in
and
you know, Voxel
and you
whatever that
think
was
about
called.
the tech there on, you know, compatibility to move items between those, and then to be able to interface between them, like, you know, look through it. Effectively, it would be nice if you could walk through a mirror or walk through a door to the other universe, right? But then you think about the hardware involved. I have to have decent hardware. I have to have decent headgear, and, you know, for the augmented reality, I mean, that's, you know, I'm not going to wear around this you know, huge thing with a camera in it. You know, and then you think about the best use of augmented reality that I've seen is like, say, in a map that I could theoretically, you know, hold up my phone and see, oh, that's where the restaurant is, you know, directly over there. The issue is, if I'm in downtown Seattle, I'm not going to be having my phone out looking around like a tourist, right? So it's, you know, it's like, if you want to get mugged, you know, go ahead and you know, do this stuff, but it's so, there's so many hurdles in front of it, right? Because it's
Direct
cool.
corpus
It's cool.
callosum interface, man. That's what I
We
want
need
to
some
get
slick
installed.
shades, man.
Yeah.
And another
Yeah.
important part to this metaverse is going to be able to put value in and take value out, and then transfer that value between worlds. And again, the infrastructure for that is probably going to be complex, but that's what we want, right? We spend thousands of dollars on V-Bucks for Fortnite, but we can't take those skins out. We can't get back the money that we put in. And so finding ways to transfer this value in different ways is going to be an interesting solution for these metaverses.
And that's why I
I
will
think
say,
Warren hit the nail on the head with that. What I'm trying to say is about augmented reality is that is what the masses will find value in.
oh yeah,
There's a lot of people that they don't like video games. A lot of my friends is that's for children. You know, it's still a way of thought of a lot of, and those people are the ones that don't like tech. They're scared of tech. They don't want to know anything about, you know, they're the no coiners. And that's why I think AR is something that is, when I use the term real, that's much more of a reality.
Oh,
For
yeah.
them, any kind of virtual stuff is just a video game, and they're not interested.
Right. Right.
Which there's video games are huge,
And-
so there's a lot of people that are think the way we do, but as far as bringing that killer app where it brings everybody in, that's why I think augmented reality will appeal to everyone, you know,
Yes.
because it gets those people involved. They're like, oh,
Right.
this is something like Amazon.
Yeah.
I can see that share, how it's going to look
It's-
right there in my
Right.
room.
It'll be the
actually,
That's a huge thing.
it's
The
actually
lightest weight
useful.
foist you can put on somebody who doesn't want to use any of it.
Yeah. Well, it's something useful. It's something that's like, oh, if you use this,
Yeah.
it'd be simpler. And it's like, oh, I'll use that, right? That's fully true. An interop, though, if it's software, it's simple. I mean, if it's obviously doable. The problem is the standard or agreements and whatever else, and that's why open standards matter. Okay. Downtown has a paragraph. The country of Wirtland is for sale. Is it Wirtland? This is a golden opportunity to show all the things that crypto can do, from voting and IDs to metaverse and dispute resolution. They have a populace and a history. They just need good decentralized governance and currency, and a vision that will carry them to the promised land of equality for all, in a world where governments will compete for citizens by serving the people. These poor people have been struggling since long before the advent of blockchain. Somebody please help them. I don't know anything about Wirtland. Do you guys?
They should
I looked it
totally
up.
annex as a county into Mega Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll welcome them here.
Well, I have said, by the way, at a high level, if you look at the crypto world, my dream is that in the end, we all have our own issued coin, you know, from which I'm going to say my supply is 1 million Joe coin. And, you know, if you want to work or want me to do things, I accept Joe coin and Bitcoin, right? And so you can buy some Joe coin out there and come in and pay for it. And my value will go up based upon whatever I'm offering to do, right? And it's almost like instead of a nation state or a city state, we're an indie state. You know, you're an independent state unto yourself, and everything is a competition. So
Almost
my
like a
coin is
sovereign
worth this
individual.
much. That's what I'm talking about. And effectively, you know, that's what small countries should be doing. Or I don't know what definition, if this is a country, if it's a state, if it's, I don't know what it is, but that would be valuable, because then their citizens can use the scarcity of the technology, or they can model whatever scarcity they want. They can model behaviors. They can pay their taxes and pay their bills in this currency, whatever it is, and it happens to be back with Bitcoin, or happens to be back with some mixed bag of Bitcoin, Ethereum, some alts, and precious metals, even, right? That's kind of the dream, but it's a weird thing. And we've had people on the show before, on the Super Happy before, that had their own personal coins, and they were pretty much using it for governance. Is like, well, should I do this or should I do this, right? Should I go to college to do this, or should I just become a YouTuber or something? It's a weird thing, but it's very interesting, and people end up invested in people. So.
And it's funny you bring that up. Just yesterday, I ran into somebody out at lunch yesterday, and we ended up in a conversation about exactly that. Not about Metaverse, but about individual, like hyper local currencies, that kind of thing, and the challenges of it, and how it would or wouldn't work. And one of the things is, you can have as many as you want, but like, how do you get liquidity between all of them to where it's easy to transfer one for the other? If I live in Gainesville, I will happily take your Texas coin, but how do I pay my Gainesville bills with Texas coin without, like, the city takes Gainesville coin, not Texas coin, so now you're talking about how do you have seamless interoperability between coins and between currencies, and how do you get that liquidity there to where people can do it and it doesn't affect everyone else every time you make a trade for something else, and that kind of thing.
And to do that, we would need some kind of universal numerary. Right now, U.S. dollars are taking the place of, all the fiat currencies are taking the place of a native numerary token. The idea that that there is a thing with which you can colloquially put price tags on, and it becomes this unit of value that, whether or not you actually hold it or transact in it, you can determine how much of my thing I need in order to make it worth what you're asking for. And that's something that I think crypto has yet to figure out, and something that we are going to have to figure out sooner than later, as fiat currencies collapse on themselves due to their own poor governance decisions.
Can I read the 2-sentence description of Wirtland? Because I think a lot of us were unfamiliar with it. I was before, because since we're on this question still, right? Isn't that the question we're on?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Wirtland apparently claims to be the world's first internet-based sovereign country. Wirtland is an experiment into legitimacy and self-sustainability of a country without its own soil. And then it goes on more about it. So it's a pre-blockchain.
That ties into the IndieCoin thing that I was talking about, because the theory behind the union of states over here in the U.S. Was that if a local government, which is more powerful than this centralized federal government back then, if a local government becomes despotic, I can say, you know what, I'm going to move across state lines because this is nuts. I'm not going to pay you guys taxes. I'm going to go over here. And effectively making the government more centralized has killed a lot of those advantages of the differences between the states. Effectively, it's like, oh, this state has no taxes. Like, I don't really care about the state taxes. I care about the federal taxes, and I can't get away from them. That at some point, imagine if you didn't have that geographic boundary, that I could say, look, I'm going to pay it's almost equivalent to having mineral rights versus the land rights, that virtual rights. I'm going to go with Wirtland because I like their model, and I will put money into this to do that, and I'll pay whatever taxes they might have, or fees. But I have to still pay, whatever physically is going on around me where I'm living. And it's, it may be a better model for how a lot of people live, that they might just move between nation states. But anyway.
And I think that probably what will end up having to happen is, sovereign locations in the metaverse will have to be, Wirtland compatible, right? They'll have to say, you can interchange this component that is our governance architecture for theirs, and we will interface with them in a way that's seamless, so that you can have the sovereign that you choose, and you can still pay your taxes and maintain your things. It will just be them responsible for the doing, and and they'll pay us back and forth to allow for that.
At what point will you get international recognition for one of these metaverse platforms that, let's say you get a platform that has 1 billion users on it. Will they end up with embassies from physical nation states inside of their metaverse? Yes. You know that the different countries will put embassies in that metaverse. And then will that metaverse have embassies that might be recognized in these actual countries?
That would be fantastic. The physical embassy of a metaverse. You already have big companies.
Once fiat currencies collapse, man, that's what's going to take. The fiat currencies will have to collapse before they'll admit that.
We should also talk about the commercialization of metaverses and how big brands are going to be purchasing large amounts of land in these metaverses to do advertising, and that might also affect the outcome of these worlds and the governance models as you prefaced. But yeah, there's a lot of that happening.
Will anybody want to live in Verizon Wireless first? Yeah.
That's a good point, Oren, because even like I look around at some of the, I pop into Decentraland sometimes. I like that one because it's just a web browser interface from any computer I happen to be on, kind of thing. And I look at the marketplace there, and I look at who companies are. I see they have a big estate, and it's like cost, zillions of dollars or something. And I'm like, who the crap is this with this estate? And I go and I look into their company. I check it out. It is decent advertising. Not that there's a lot of traffic on Decentraland right now, but things like that, I can see just putting some clout there, saying, no, look what we can buy a big estate and you can't because we're a big company. You should come check out why we can do it and join us.
You also brought up a good point, Dave, which is also about ease of access into these worlds, right? A lot of these worlds take a lot of computational power. They sometimes have their own desktop client. And so basically allowing people to access this world from anywhere. Decentraland allows that, CryptoVoxel allows that, but worlds need to make sure that anybody and everybody can access this and experience it, and that they don't need tech or special know-how to be able to access.
Yeah. I was just thinking about it is such a weird subject when we really get down to it. It's such a futuristic, insane thing that we're talking about. Because when we talk about the reality of it and what's being shaped and what's coming, it is mind blowing. But when we're talking about interoperability, I was thinking like, what if you have a character, an avatar, and you're completely banned on Facebook, on Meta, but you're able to leave that and still interact in some way. And Facebook as a company, or Meta as a company, can they cross lines and go into a different universe to stop you if you were created there? I mean, it's a lot of, the real world, the corporate world, and then the meta world kind of,
That's why self-ownership is so important, right? Like that's why we need, we need to make sure that you own your avatar and your property and your, like if I take my crypto owner's car and I cruise it into Facebook's version of the metaverse and they tell me I can't come in, they don't get to take my car away. I just have to drive away.
Yeah, that's the crazy. Like if Facebook agrees, hey, we want to play in this, in this game. So we agree to NFTs can move freely from your thing to. I can't see them accepting that. Like I go over there and I say some crazy stuff, and then they're like, you're banned, and we're gonna take away your like you're talking about taking away Oculus and all that.
Right.
They would have no power. And
I don't want to come to your stupid side of the neighborhood anyway. If I have
like
nothing there, they can't come with me.
Where like if you do the wrong thing with the banks, that none of the banks will do business with you, or something like that.
That already exists, right?
Situation.
Yeah, but and that's the other side of it. I mean, at what point will people in some decentralized metaverse literally build a wall so that people can't come in from Meta, right? I mean, at some point you're like, we don't want those people from Meta because they come in and they mess everything up and they bring problems and everything, Facebook BS. So I don't know. There's some really interesting, weird things there.
In relationship to a wall.
Like just
we definitely need to. I think we definitely need to make sure it's welcoming, right? Like I definitely need to make sure that when people defect from Facebook controlled version of the metaverse, that there's a friendly gate reception going, hey, here's your starter avatar and your your 40 acres and your car and your whatever. Like we need these projects ready to show up and welcome people into the open one. Because if we don't do that, you can guarantee that the ones that are selling data are going to be happy to productize people.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like we don't want productized people in the free metaverse. And I think we're going to have to put forth resources to welcome people in.
To throw another question out there, building off of that, in terms of a wall, what do you guys think is going to be the evolution of metaverses? Because right now they're free. Are people going to have to pay to access certain experiences, to access certain people's lands within this world, right? If everything's free, how are people generating money? What do you guys think of the evolution of that and paying to see people's specific parcels?
Can I say, I think scarcity is probably the most important thing, and probably, I've I've been interested in Decentraland since it was first announced, but because I knew there was something there, but I don't even know the scarcity model for that. I mean, in my opinion, there should be the ability to create a new world, right? Whatever the interface is like, okay, here's this is first world, and this one was launched because we reached 1 billion users or whatever else, so we need to open it up so people can actually afford land and things like that. I don't know what the scarcity models are on these, and the fact that if I were to buy a plot of land for many thousands of dollars, is it going to be not worth many thousands of dollars because they just made 1,000 new worlds, so right. Why would I buy that? And so they have to balance that somehow.
I think DAO ownership is going to be the key.
Yes.
I think that it's going to be a situation where, there may be gated experiences, and those things will certainly be out there if we're going to have a free thing, right? The only way that everybody isn't, paying to enter the city state of this kind of fun versus that kind of fun, is if you have a governance structure that allows people to enter and earn through contribution, not through contribution of resources necessarily, but maybe through contribution of creative input, the right to access different things.
We're going in that
there are
direction.
lots of ways to provide value, and some of them are your thought and your creative potential.
Yeah, like you're seeing that being like that's being. There's already places that you can only access in these worlds if you hold a certain token or if you hold an NFT that gives you that proves that you should be allowed in there. There's buildings you can't go through this door unless you have a certain NFT. You know what I mean? So things like that, you're starting to see stuff like that, but it's just
that's good, I think. So,
well,
and at what point? I mean, the models that I can think of off top of head are: let's say we have this world and you own one plot of land, and there are 1 million others, and by governance, by DAO, because you own that one plot of land as a landholder, you have one vote, and your vote is okay. We could at once expand our users by creating a new world. It might devalue mine a little bit, but you could either treat you could either dilute with mining, where if I'm participating every day. So, one way to get the users up in Decentraland would be to reward people just for being there, because there aren't enough people there. So you reward volume of activity. And now when this new world is being built, that's how we get access to it, right? That's one way. The other could be equivalent to a stock split. I don't want to get into the security side of anything, but the fact that because I hold one plot here, I also now hold one plot there, but there's a bigger supply in the new world, right? So, but I at least am getting a proportional amount of that. And now you have what happened in Oklahoma when they opened it up, that you have a land rush. The sooner we can get in there and purchase these properties, and it gets a lot of interest and it gets a lot of new users in. So there's going to be a lot of things like that will be super interesting. That, in my opinion, will be equivalent to things that happened with land in the real world historically, whether it's a conquered section of land, or if it's because, new land is found. So a bunch of people are going to rush in and, okay, we're going to settle over here and go through this horrible environment early on, because I know once I plant my flag in there, it's going to be worth something in the future, a place for me to live, right?
And everybody's attention has so much value, right? Like that's the insane thing. Everybody carries this unit of value around with them called your attention. That, like, if we could have the entire globe paying attention to this show right now, what wouldn't we give to have people listening to this and contributing to the conversation? Like, there's literally no limit to the amount of human mind that you can apply to a thing to not make it better, right? And I think that, you know, the real world gatekeeping of things neglects that principle so much that you know, when we bring this new world into existence, you know, the people that are going to win are the people that are going to recognize that. There's no gate that you don't want to fling wide open and say, come right in, right? As long as they're coming in and giving you their attention, it's automatically a contribution of value.
All right. Let's see, on time, we're good. Cryptocurrency asks, is the metaverse a fad or here to stay? Let's say things like Bitcoin, Cardano, Ethereum, and BNB are relatively safe investments. Would you say the same for top metaverse tokens like Sand, Gala, Mana, etc.? This is no investment advice. I'll just preface that for everybody. So, you know, this is just interesting opinion on tech, right? So
yeah. Well, I don't think that Hero Protagonist would have thought that it's a fad. It's been around for a long time. It's had some staying power, at least in concept. And I think that the idea of it has been more exciting than the reality of it until the idea was enabled by what we have technologically today. So I think that the metaverse has been something that's been brewing in the back of a lot of people's minds for a long, long, long time. And it hasn't gone away yet. And it hasn't gone away even though they couldn't quite build it yet. You know, it still didn't go away even though it wasn't quite possible. And now it is. So I think that it's only just fuel on that fire that's been building for a while. I don't personally think that metaverse is anywhere near a fad. I think it's just the beginnings of enabling what a lot of people have already wanted for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's a desire that's been there since it was since before it was a possibility. You know, I mean, go back to like Lawnmower Man and how crazy and ridiculous. And
I was hoping somebody had seen that.
Yeah, so it's been something that everyone's wanted before it was, you know, available. I mean, it was like a dream, like somebody riding a horse, imagining, hey, I wonder if we could build some kind of crazy machine that I don't have to feed, and you know, I don't have to worry about it dying. And
right. So, the guys who called the automobile a fad.
Every technological leap has been called a fad, from, you know,
the horseless carriage
in movies to the TV to, you know, computer to the internet. So I don't think I would think it's a fad if it didn't exist, nobody really wanted it, and then it came out of nowhere and everyone just fell in love with it. That's a fad. But something that people have been wanting for decades and have accepted and used even when it was crap, and thought, oh, this is cool, you know. It's only improved, it's only got better. So I definitely don't think it's a fad.
Yeah, when it comes to particular projects, though, I would say, you know, standard speculative investment advice applies. Don't invest anything you don't expect to never get back. Like, you are essentially a mini venture capitalist, and the way that those guys make their money is they don't invest what they can't lose. They spread it around and they throw it in as if they're never going to see it again. And that's how you should speculate on individual projects, because even though the idea has staying power, you never know which one specifically is going to be the one that wins, right? So a great example would be the notion that heavier than air flight is going to be somebody invents a machine that flaps its arms. It's called an ornithopter. We don't use those. We use traditional fixed wing aircraft. We use helicopters. Those were not the projects that people would have invested in if they would have thought heavier than air flight is coming. I'm going to go to this guy who's making a mechanical bird, right? So you're going to pick some mechanical birds if you get in early, but you just have to account for that. But you have to believe in the idea. So if you believe in the idea, then it's a great investment. But don't invest more than you can't lose if you don't know. And by the way, I seriously do want one of those dragonfly ornithopters to exist. Those things would be badass.
Well, can I throw in two things? That is that, you know, you could look at the crypto component of the metaverse, which is new, as a big important advantage or use case for using blockchain and crypto itself. That is that up to this point, it's all been about just the tech itself. Okay, how can we get the best, most responsive view? And that tech takes a long time to develop to a point where it's wearable and usable. The machines themselves have to be able to be efficient enough. The graphics cards need to be fast enough, so on. So all these things, not even talking about the complexities of crypto, right? That it's a very hard, it takes a long time to get there. And adding crypto in and scarcity in could be the driving factor that brings the interest, because it has because it's like the equivalent of the music industry, when all of a sudden they're so freaked out that with DAT tapes first and then with MP3s that anybody can just duplicate this. What do we do? What do we do? Right? If they would have employed tech back then, they might have come upon some of these principles earlier than they have developed. But that's if essentially what's needed, that you need some level of scarcity, that I bought this thing, therefore I hold the keys, therefore I own it. And that could actually drive adoption, or at least attention, which is that important part you mentioned. The other thing to mention, and the reason it's kind of so strange to me, is historically, you go back, as we grew up with, looking at all the sci-fi, there's not a single, there are a couple of references to like currency, but sci-fi generally did not predict the advent of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. And it's so jarring when you look at amazing, stories, but the fact that there is no component of what we know is possible with a decentralized network for the currency, or for some of the other things. Most of them didn't even predict the internet, right? So it's a very weird thing when you're looking at, like watching a movie that was produced in a time before crypto was around, and it's just a strange thing. And
or if you go back today and read like Neuromancer, William Gibson said that, like think about all the stuff that Gibson got right that he nailed in Neuromancer, but he didn't predict cell phones, right? So throughout the whole book, there's not any cell phones ever, and so that creates issues that it's obvious now, but
right. I mean, even in the 90s, the internet was going to be TV only better. A lot of people thought that. Like, it's not anything like that. It became a thing, but it became a thing that nobody could visualize, because we only had the metaphors of the past to use in our frame of reference. And I think there's a lot of that here. So much of this we can't predict, because we can't see how people are going to put it to use. We know that they're going to use it because there's something here about it that we want to make part of society, but but predicting specifically what that is the speculation, right?
Yep. Okay. Are we okay? One more question. Let's see here. I guess, do we go to street meat? Yeah. Sorry. Regardless of cost, if you could build anything in the most popular metaverse, what would it be and why? That's a good question.
I want to know what Oren's going to build primarily. What do you got building, man? What would you do?
So right now we're working on a privacy dApp called Question. The website is qstn.us. And so what we want to do is we want to put our headquarters in CryptoVoxels. And then because CryptoVoxels is going to be interoperable with Substrata, we're then going to have satellite offices within that. And so to launch our company in March, we're thinking about doing a festival and a promotional concert within the metaverse. And we're currently building an NFT museum so that all of the digital art that our business collects and owns, people can share it, celebrate it, and talk about it. So just spaces for people to celebrate art, learn about data, learn about privacy, and just to further get into that world,
Well, I just thought about it for about 30 seconds. And I think if we could utilize AI and in the metaverse, you could build a kind of an interactive mausoleum where people could over time talk to the AI, just maybe once a week, or discuss what they've done, so that you're building a model of yourself within that metaverse. So if you pass away, your family members can go and actually interact with a decent version of who you really were.
Wow.
And
Dude.
To interact like you're really there.
I hadn't thought of like time
That's
capsules.
super cool.
You know, if you have permanence of a
Yeah, I
metaverse.
just came up with that right now.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's pretty
Dude,
good.
and
That's
let
pretty
it
good.
loose into the metaverse, right? Like you could
Yeah.
literally continue to exist. That'd be
Yeah,
super
that's a
cool.
whole nother thing. Thinking about that,
Oh,
but
yeah.
but a good what was that one? I Robot. You know how he programmed that interactive simulation, something like that. But just every week, or you can go do it every day, like in your diary. Just talk to the AI, and at the end of your of your life, whenever you do go, there's so much data compiled in that version of you that the AI could extrapolate. And also you could fake it. You could just be the nicest person in the world when you're talking to it. So when your family goes and interacts, it would be not quite right. But if you really did it right, you could live on for a long time. Your great grandkids could meet you, and if it was a good AI, you could be literally be like, oh, I'm so glad that I didn't never actually was physically met your dad, but now it's cool I can meet you.
You put the
Or if
crystal
everything
in the
goes south,
slot and
you
Jarrell
can go.
comes up. Is that what it is? Right?
What is it?
Jarrell, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's the Superman thing. It's like I'm
Yeah,
gonna put all of my. You can come in and ask me questions when you're there in
yeah,
that filthy earth.
that is exactly that's it. You
That's
got it.
basically the same thing that I was going to say. I was just going to say, like, if it went south and there was some sort of like bad AI situation, you could go back and pull the architect who designed it to try to figure out how to defeat it and talk to him. You know,
That's
How-
so Star Trek in the holodeck, man.
How
Yeah.
how about a metaport where you basically go to this facility that lets you go to the other metaverses, and but I'm gonna in whatever I'm in Facebook's meta. I have to go to the metaport, and it has all these different worlds I can go into, and I can hop through there. I mean, that's one way that I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine something like Mario 64. If you're familiar with like the room
Yeah.
you first go in, it's got the paintings, and you jump
Yeah.
into different worlds. Ooh,
Yeah.
you go into different worlds, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, like
Yeah.
a jumping off point.
But metaport is the important. I think that's the name you'd have to use.
Well, I mean, yeah, if Meta made it, right?
No. It wouldn't matter if it was in meta. I'm saying if you were in Decentraland, it would still be a
Okay, gotcha.
metaport. It would be moving between metaverses. Depending on what word is, ends up being the word. But yeah,
If you're an introvert and you don't leave your house, are you a metavert? If you just live on the metaverse all the time?
I do not know. All right.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I'd probably do a big music festival that some sort of hybrid, like augmented reality bridge into the music fest, like a real world one that if you're in a different country, you can visit it and you can go party. But then in the metaverse, there's some sort of interaction with real meat space festival that's happening on a regular grounds, like a 700-acre plot somewhere.
And
something.
Frankly, the other thing that people, if you're interested in that world and actually, potentially building something or at least conceptualizing something, you look at the capabilities, and there might be cross sections across different metaverses, different platforms, but you look at what they're capable of. You look at the range of hardware that people have. That therefore you map. Okay, this is a real capability. This is another real capability that has 80% of the world could access this capability. That you then map it to what could I build, whether it's a game, whether it's some utility, some service that you provide something in the various metaverses that give people some extra value, either interoperability between them, or use or items, or just like in a game that you're going to craft something that people will buy from you. That what are those things? And that's why it's still, I don't really have a great answer. That the ones that came up here were pretty good, but for what really will matter and what will really drive people is like, boom, everybody has to get on the metaverse because this is the only way you can do X. That's what's needed. Once you have that, then the explosion happens.
Like you can't apply for a job unless you have access to the internet, kind of thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There you
Right. There's something that there is something. I don't know what it is.
I would build it. I would build a historical state simulator where you can literally dial in the time period and the geographic parameters, and then jump into a world and experience life in that time period of that particular event. So whether you wanted to watch whether you wanted to watch, some historic Civil War battle take place, or you wanted to see what life was like for, people who were voyaging from, voyaging on a Viking ship into the first sort of landings at Newfoundland. Like you could just dial that in and see what the world was like. And
I was
think that
thinking
would be
much
a
more
really neat thing
mundane
to do.
stuff, like going back to your hometown when you were, 5.
Oh, you can do that too, right?
Well, you
kind
could
of
build
thing.
that, right? That's the thing. The tech is already there, by the way, to do most of that stuff. You just need the interoperability between. Let's bring this scarcity of this metaverse, plugging it into this battle simulator, or plugging it into your hometown, literally. Like the stuff that Street View and Google Maps. There've been a few crazy mashups where you can put in when you grew what your address was when you grew up, and it'll put together this video. Which are actually using the actual neighborhood. It's just weird, right? But it's stuff like that could be, I don't know, that'd be very interesting.
I just thought of something. Is we could maybe I'll try it one day. It'd be great to put on a show and then or have a venue, have a box office, in the metaverse, where that's where you have to get the tickets from. You go to the box office and you can look at the posters on the wall and see what shows are coming up, like a regular theater box office or something. But it's open all the time, and you have an AI greeter there, and you interact and transact. That'd be interesting, just kind of artificial.
Well, that should be kind of like the continuation, just websites, like Ticketmaster. That would just be what Ticketmaster was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like pick your best. Like in Ticketmaster, you can pick a seat. What if you go try it out first? Go walk up there, see what the view's like, that kind of thing.
Bad. That's not bad. Oh, the other bit, which is somewhat the augmented reality, is theoretically you could go to a concert that you can't physically go to. It's still actually in a physical venue, so I could go there if I'm in town, but if not, I can still attend and I can still have a seat and I can still do whatever, right?
What if you could buy that seat in that metaverse to where you get like a cut of everybody who buys that or something like that? There's all kinds of who knows? Anything's possible, right?
Yep. Well, you could literally use that as an investment vehicle to fund the real world construction of a thing, which I love the idea of too. Another one would be like, okay, so I bought this asteroid in the asteroid belt, or I bought a portion of it, and once everybody buys it, we've funded essentially the towing of it into orbit and beginning to mine it, and everybody gets a chunk of the proceeds. That would be kind of a good thing.
Well, that is insane. Right? If you're talking about building like a stadium, there's only $20 million box seats that are up for sale, but you could literally build that virtually as well. Yeah. And those box seats could go to someone else and you could sell them for $500,000. So you've made so much more capital just by doing that. Because it
I
is
like the idea of building it out with like a way to raise money to build it in reality. That's
it's like the way a city will raise money to build a bridge or to build a highway, instead of having a toll road that the toll never goes away, even though they always declare it's like it's only here until we pay for it. It's like right. And so you have this toll road now. If you instead owned a piece of the toll road that was the road from your house to work, and so you get free access, number one, there's no toll, but the other people are paying a toll and I'm getting a cut, right? That would be a much better way, but all of the way that cities do that is so antiquated, it's nuts. So
now imagine this: you form a DAO, you buy one of these seats. Half of the year you give those seats or the proceeds from selling those seats to the people who create the DAO, and the other half of the year you take those tickets and you give them to anybody who wants to watch the show, who would normally not have access, who may not want to enter the digital world. Your DAO's purpose is to actually expand the access.
Yeah, it's doable.
It could literally be a self-sustaining charitable activity as well, which I think is going to be important in making sure that everybody can participate in this, as opposed to just people who have the means to get started.
We should look to build one of these in Mega Texas.
Yes, absolutely. Mega Texas is obviously my obvious answer. That's got to happen.
Mega Texas is better than Mega Taxes, man. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Mega Texas itself should look at doing basing everything on this stuff. Anyway, all right. So that's good. We're over time. Sorry, guys. Let's see here. I'm going to thank everybody for coming in. What updates? What's going on this week, Dave?
Oh man, well, governance just landed on DIN Social, so we have the entire, most of the entire governance as a service system where your individual layer now your users can interact with their ownership tokens, with their NFTs that they have as votes. And so basically, we went from a system where you had owners and admins to a system where now all the owners are admins, and it's a decentralized governance system. So that is like a no code necessary. Any layman can use its system on DIN. It's live as of yesterday. And I put my first proposal up to add a tag yesterday. So I'm cutting my teeth on it. But that's great. Check it out. Go see how it works. Get your lot tokens. And also we got new layers going up. So if you want to open your own, you can propose them this week. And then it goes into voting phases. And then at the end of the month, somebody wins and we get new communities added. So that's what DIN's got going on right now.
Awesome. Sean.
I'm taking it easy, man, for the rest of the year, pretty much gearing up for Christmas and New Year. I'm probably going to be doing some shows. Greg, you're going to be on the first one, by the way. I didn't know if I told you that.
Oh, sweet.
I actually said that on a live a few times. But yeah, just kind of hanging out. Check me out on the usual socials and YouTube and all that. Just chilling, man.
Right, Oren, what is new?
Greetings, everyone. We've been away for a bit because we went to Portugal for NearCon. We recently demoed the DApp that we're working on at NearCon. We received a grant from the Human Guild, and so we're currently iterating on the Near blockchain, and you can sign up at our waitlist at qstn.us, and hopefully we'll have a prototype out by January 1st for beta testing. Thank you.
Cool.
Excellent.
Cool.
Greg.
So aside from continuing the charge towards Mega Texas, which, or as the formal title shall be until somebody votes to change it, the United Counties of Mega Texas. So you will be able to join that someday, whether or not it's me leading the charge or somebody who takes the torch from me. I don't know, but Mega Texas is out there now. As far as Rivet is concerned, we are about to launch Cardinal, which is going to be sort of the version 2 of the engine that powers Rivet, and it's going to allow us to open up to supporting basically any chain that that's EVM based at first, and then beyond as we move into it. So that's coming up within the next month to 45 days.
Excellent. And for Dragonchain, there's a ton of going on behind the scenes for the World Blockchain Roundtable. We need to start talking about what would we want to do with governance, because one of the big things that I'm excited about is changing the format. You can vote me off, so I'm not on here every week. You could potentially propose to change the algorithm for how we reward the hosts versus the topic contributors. There are a lot of interesting things we can do there, and we should start really thinking about it, because now that we have data, we can see, oh, this is how the breakdown usually looks like. Is it balanced enough? How do we drive adoption and viewership and everything else? So that's a lot of what we'll be talking about in the coming weeks. Make sure everybody who's watching, join the WBRT, the World Blockchain Roundtable Layer and DIN, to ask questions for next week. This week the questions were excellent. Last week the questions were excellent. I mean, we're getting really good topics from that. And next week the theme is DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. So it should be super exciting because there's tons of ideas.
Excited to listen to Greg the whole time.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's almost like these should be longer, but I hesitate to say they should be longer because everybody tells us it's too long, right? It's like a Joe Rogan show or something. But some of these things we could go on for many more hours talking about these subjects we've been going into. So, I don't know how best.
Sometimes, or like an overtime. Sometimes, if we wanted to.
Right. Yeah. We should probably figure out how to do that, how to make it work.
Yep, or you can vote to make them longer if you want to see us on here for longer.
Yeah, now that we have that tool, those tools on DIN, we can actually just have that conversation.
Because the main purpose of this is to get these subjects in front and to get conversations and answers to people who have legitimate questions. I want to know more about X, and we can kind of expand on that and, figure out what ideas come out of it. So anyway, do also please share this episode. The more it's shared, the more it's viewed, the more all of the topic contributors and the hosts will get. I think it's a very nice system, and we're just now going to, kind of unload what the power of that is, that we can all kind of affect how it moves forward. So it's going to be fun. And, like, comment, subscribe, all the other normal things. I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything to throw out?
Yeah, one quick thing. We got a DenGov call today, and we're going to be moving to every week. January, yes. Probably, right? After holidays?
Depending on how they land, I guess. I don't know what day.
Okay.
Christmas is on a Saturday. I don't know. It's possible we could.
I just figured it was in general, get through the holidays, because we said after governance lands that we would do it every week. But I think
I'm open to it. So
anyway, that's later today.
Yeah, we could actually even vote on that if we wanted to some level, maybe. Maybe not. Anyway, whatever. I think that's it. Thanks a bunch, guys.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?